Alrighty, Squid Game Season 2 just dropped, and it kind of felt underwhelming. But first, I'm gonna give my non-spoiler review, because while the season obviously was not as good as the first season, which was never going to happen, so let me tell you what worked for me and what didn't work for me without spoilers. First off, and this is the biggest personal issue I had with this show, as an American who spent their whole life in the States, I could not for the life of me remember any of these characters' names. So for the remainder of this video, I'm just gonna refer to them as their player number or just show a picture of them on screen. Now, one thing this season does really well is it's actually really good before these players ever go into the actual Squid Game island. I honestly feel like this dude's backstory and the whole episode he gets is probably the best episode in the entire Squid Game seasons, but that's really all I can say without spoiling the show. You'll just have to watch it. Now, also one thing I do like is how the show argues the merits of the game a lot more than the first season, where the first season really painted the organization as bad people. We get a whole bunch of different arguments on how these people in control aren't really doing anything wrong. For example, there's a character who I won't mention who says this, but there's a character that says, "What about the people who want to keep playing the games until the end?" Because these people playing genuinely have nothing to go home to. Most of them, I should mention. But I bring this up because player 456 wants to put an end to this game. But he also doesn't think about how most of these people are at a dead end in their lives. These people were chosen when they had no positive direction in their lives, and now they have a chance to win to have a better life. And this continues on for the rest of the season. And he keeps saying this is wrong, but these other players just don't care because, like I said, most of them don't have a life outside of this island. And that really gives a new perspective to this game, because I never stopped to think to myself, even in the first season, well, maybe there are people that want to keep playing. I mean, most of these players have insane depths, so really, is it wrong of them to want to keep playing? But what I also do like is player 456 eventually says that they shouldn't fight each other and they need to fight the people who run these games and prey on these type of people. Because while yeah, it is messed up what they're doing, but they're still getting consent from these players to do all these awful things to them. And they do even give them an option to stop playing even before the games start. But to be fair, these guards and people in control, even in the first season, never did clarify that these people will die if they lose at any point in these games. And that's what I like the most about this season, is arguing what the cost of being a hero is for player 456. Now, one thing that did not work for me whatsoever was the narrative and the ending, because this whole season is just the first half of the story. It's season 2 part 1, and my biggest problem with that way of storytelling is that if you don't have a good ending, then it does feel underwhelming. I won't spoil the ending for you, but it just didn't work for me. There's also a whole lot of character stories that don't wrap up at all, and this lack of conclusion doesn't work because there isn't a big twist at the end to look forward to either. I think the only time when a project does a part 1 story of a bigger narrative only works in movies like Across the Spider-Verse, which has an ending that gives the audience such a huge twist to look forward to. But here, it just doesn't work for me. But I can't get too deep into that without spoiling it, so you just have to wait until I do spoil it. I will spoil this for you. There's a whole subplot about how there's all these guys trying to find the island, and just to spoil something that doesn't actually go anywhere, they never actually do find the island for the remainder of the season, and literally all they do is keep going to different islands and then checking other islands because they never do find it. But meanwhile that's going on, there's still the same subplot of these guards trying to save these people. And it's so stupid because it doesn't go anywhere. Like I said, there's obviously more to this, but there also isn't much to go off of. Because like I said, the show only tells the first half of the story. But here's another thing I just noticed about Squid Games while watching it. Sorry, Squid Game. I understand why the guards kill people, because they need to sell their organs and whatnot. I understand that when people die, the cash price goes up because they sell their organs and whatnot. But if the objective is to get all these organs and sell them, then why are you using guns to kill these people? Because again, I know I'm spoiling a lot for you for a non-spoiler review, but trust me, the shit is so stupid you won't care if I end up spoiling it for you. But if the objective is to make money off these people, why are you shooting them? Because we see the same bullshit from the first season where these guards keep saying, oh, I could only salvage the eyes and the tongue or whatever the fuck. Well, if you can only salvage a few organs, why are you shooting them? You probably would have made a lot more money if you just snapped their necks or something. Also, another thing I can't stand about the community of people that watch this show is that there's really people out there saying that the worst character was a transgender player who isn't even transgender in real life. He's just wearing a wig. But y'all need to grow the hell up if you think the worst character is the transgender player, because the actual worst character has to be this spiritual bitch. I could not stand her for the life of me. Yeah, you thought I was gonna say Thanos, right? But no, I actually like all these different personalities that they bring here, like Thanos. There's also like no tension in these games either, other than the first episode, but to get into that, we have to get into spoilers. So anyway, good season, but really underwhelming. That was my non-spoiler review for the season, so if you haven't watched it, this is your last chance for spoilers. So, let's do a deep dive and see how Squid Game Season 2 felt very underwhelming. Now I'll still explain these scenarios for you even if you haven't watched the show or if you're not planning to watch it. Now to start things off, for player 456, not knowing about player 1 is the dumbest shit I could not stand about this season. Because even in the last season, player 1 was a part of the people who run the game. Are you fucking stupid, man? And also, you seriously mean to tell me that this dude really forgot that his brother was a part of the game? You just saw him in the last season and you just forgot? Whatever, anyway, ignoring all that bullshit, let's talk about these games. The games kind of sucked. There's really no tension either, especially for games like the first one. And surprisingly, the first episode game with these three have more tension than the rest of the games. But that's because these games also don't put the players who care about each other against each other, unlike the first episode. But thankfully they do change the games. However, that party trick game is probably the lamest shit ever. You're telling me the prize pool is 45 billion won, which is $30 million, and the game that stands in your way is a fucking party game? And the voting sessions were also really fucking dumb most of the times and just felt like filler. Because like I said in the beginning, there are people that obviously want to keep playing the games and they're not going to change their minds. This vote doesn't do anything but waste our time most of the time. I do like that they put player 1 and player 456 together in all these games. Seeing the dynamic of someone who's in control and someone who's planning to shut this shit down works so well for this season. And yeah, I know I just said it's stupid how player 456 doesn't know about player 1, but seriously, I loved every scene with these two together. But interestingly enough, another thing I love seeing was that player 1 can die in these games, because even though the party trick game was dumb, he'd have to reveal to all the players that he's a front man if he wants to live, if he were to lose. So honestly, is it stupid that player 456 doesn't know about player 1? Yeah. But I liked it. But another thing I love seeing about this character was just how much of a piece of shit he is. Because before his wife died, she was ill and she was needing a transplant. So this led to player 1 entering these games because of this medical crisis he was in. And the show doesn't actually go ahead and show us it, so I can't play any clips for you. But the thing about player 1 is, in the present time of season 2, player 1's wife is dead. But player 1 keeps saying throughout the show that he wants to get back to his wife. And he says this in conversation to the other players whenever they talk about what they're going to do once they get out. This loss of touch with reality is what makes this character so fucking unsettling, because he doesn't have to be here, but he's also killing other people during these games, people who actually do have a wife or family to go back to. And this eventually leads to player 456 realizing that he can't save everyone in these games. However, player 456 plan to take down these guards is to bring an army. However, that army is those people looking for the island, but I just told you that those guys never do find the island. So the real question is, how many players is player 456 willing to let die? That way he can stop these games. I should also mention this happens in the last episode, and the show ends with player 456 friend dying as the ending, because obviously they can't kill player 456. Player 456 has something everyone refers to as plot armor, and we're gonna see a whole lot of that bullshit this season. Now surprisingly, this season I can't help but feel no emotional impact whenever any of these characters die. There's a lot of people dying in this season, and a lot more in stupid ways, but even when characters we know die, I don't feel anything for them. There's a lot of characters that resemble previous players from the first season, but I can't lie that I didn't feel anything for them. I do, however, like that all of these characters have a choice to make on whether to go home or stay in the games, and that dynamic is played through a lot in the show, and it's actually something I really do like as well. Even though I just said it was stupid, which it was stupid only because it took up a lot of time. Now finally, with all this in mind, how does this season hold up against season 1 and by itself? Well, compared to season 1, it's obviously not as good, but this season did shine in many different aspects that the first season did not. This narrative has a completely different direction that focuses on different aspects of the narrative. So while it's not as good, it's also not dog shit like most people were expecting. It's not a cash grab, it's really just a set piece to the other half, but it doesn't have a good ending. So because of that, I'm not going to give Squid Games a score. It's good, but like I said, it's the first half of a bigger narrative that just hasn't reached its better climax. So anyways, that's about it.
미안해.